Hey everyone, Brett again, back with another episode of Between Two Friends. And today I'm very excited to have with us Pilar Guzman Zavala, who is the owner and proprietor and really the brains behind a really cool brand called Half Moon Empanadas. And I'm just excited to ask Pilar some fun questions and pick her brain about business and growth because really she's doing a lot of cool things right now. So Pilar, thank you for coming on.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So tell us, I know you guys got started in 2008, but where did the concept and the name, where did it all come from?
From my husband's brain. My husband was born in Argentina, came to America when he was 8. And he always had that sort of melancholic thing with Argentina. And so as he grew up in the DC area, he always thought about, like, what do I do? What do I bring from Argentina? And then empanadas was something that he thought it would be a perfect food item for America. So he decided to move to Miami and start, like literally he researched the space for 2 years. That is not my credit, that's all his. And opened one store, the first store in South Beach. And I was back then working in Knight Foundation. So I had moved to Miami when I got married to him. And I guess I joined him in the journey.
Were empanadas something that Miami was used to at the time, or was this kind of a new thing?
There were places that had empanadas, bakeries, because it's a very Latino item, right? Like that's right. Every Latin American country has one kind of empanada. The Argentinian ones are known to be like really good. They're very different from the Mexican ones or the Venezuelans. But there were some places. But I think when he's thinking about moving to Miami was more like, okay, it's a Hispanic, it's a Latin product. Let's go to Miami.
So I'm from New Mexico, and we have just a ton of Mexican food, obviously. Mexican. So I was very familiar with empanadas, but I assumed kind of like that, like, well, Miami is a Latin community, so it'll be very similar. And the food, the Cuban food, which really predominates here in Miami, is nowhere near Mexican food. And so, there are a lot of differences.
Yeah, we actually joke that, it was actually a hard place to start because people weren't used to the Argentinian high-end, high-quality empanada. And so pricing was an issue at the beginning because people, like they wanted the cheap empanada, the fried empanada, and this, the small empanada were like, double the size of what the market offers. We make the dough, we make the fillings. So it's very artisanal. And I think that was something also very different from what the market was used to. So it was tough, it was tough to kind of position the product tougher than what we thought. I think that's
yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. And a lot of us business owners run into that, right? Like we think this will be amazing. And sometimes things take off and other times it can be harder than we thought. So before I ask you maybe about the journey a little bit, how many stores are you guys up to now?
How many? Before COVID, we had, if you had all the stores open, because we're in a lot of crowd spaces, right? Like the Miami Beach Convention Center, the universities, these are all like, events, a lot of events for that. So we had 13 stores before COVID. Now with COVID, we only have 3 stores open out of the 13.
Wow.
So they took a huge hit, yes, because universities they have no students, like there's no students, so the stores, I have 3 stores in UM, 3 stores in FIU, well, 1 and coming up with 2, but we have to put them on hold.
Sure.
Those are not included in the 13. And so, and then the airport, we have 2 stores in the airport, in Miami Airport, and 1 is open, the other one is closed. The convention center is all closed. So it's been really challenging.
You hear those stories a lot, but it's interesting to talk with somebody who's going through it right now. So,
I mean, I think it'll be another year for us to go back to those 13 stores being full open and operating. But we're taking steps to open in like in retail, like on the street where people can actually come and get it, because we have a little ventanita, a little window in our kitchen, which is one of the locations. And that surprisingly, it's been increasing. It's perfect food for a situation like this. So, that it just brings other opportunities, that's how I like to see things.
Look, I really appreciate how you said that brings, challenges and opportunities, because if anyone's gonna survive this thing, you have to look at it that way. You got to lick your chops for a few days and then say, okay, what opportunities am I presented with? I have a friend with a chocolate store, for example, who has had his best year ever because he went to online chocolate tastings instead of just being the storefront. Adversity forces us to innovate. And it sounds like that's what you guys are in the midst of. So kudos to you.
Yeah, and I think you learn from the crises too, right? Like we had a big rough start. The first, it took us 7 years, Brett, to actually get paid by the company. So we did very bad in the first store. We almost went bankrupt. I mean, I can, talk to you for 2 hours about that. But what I want to say is that, I felt the same thing coming to COVID. Like, oh my gosh, here we are again, and how stressful you feel. But the difference is that you learn, right? Like, I think I'm mentally stronger. I learn a lot about crisis and what to do and how you gotta move and pivot and find opportunities, right? And so I think that you build on those strengths too. And I think those are the people that are able to go to the other side and be okay. You have to pivot, you have to be flexible, you have to be open to other venues of revenue, you have to be creative. So yeah.
Yeah, and you have to be, sometimes you have to roll up your sleeves too and get back in the dirty work. But you mentioned the first store was tough and now this. So where do you find the perseverance, do you think, to keep at it?
I mean, I think I always say, I think it's partially who I am. I was born with this kind of mental strength that I cannot give credit to. That's just nature. And I think I don't like to quit. I'm not a quitter. I've never been. I like to be successful. It just drives me, right? Challenges give me strength because I like challenges. And I think that's on the sort of the personality side. On the side of like the reality is that you have to also see the light, right? You have to be realistic and see the light. And if you're seeing that your product is selling, then it's that is the light that you should continue, right? Like maybe it wasn't selling in my first store, but that didn't mean that my empanadas weren't selling in festivals, for example. And so I'm like, okay, so if that is happening, then something is wrong here. How do I change path? So as long as you see the light, and I think again, mental strength and not giving up.
Starting a business, to me, we should celebrate it and we should definitely support each other, but it's not as, just starting something is only the beginning, and it's not as hard to start something as it is to persevere or to maintain and then grow something, because then you run into all the challenges that you didn't think you were going to face because you've never done it before. And experience in that regard is the best teacher. I mean, I love learning from other people if I can avoid mistakes, but at the same time, until you have built up sort of the adversity muscle, like you said, and you are confronting challenges yourself, you just don't know. You don't know what it's going to be like or what you're going to run into. So really cool story. Kudos to you. What's next? And you mentioned getting back to the stores potentially, or pivoting. Are you guys, more festivals and online word of mouth, or are you going to have a mixture of both?
So many things. I'm like, the hard thing is like, okay, focus, like which one of everything that you're, looking at. So, technology is key. So we're pushing to become this company that sells empanadas, that uses technology to sell empanadas. So that's like one way that we're trying to innovate. And I think we have put that on hold for a long time because of whatever reasons, excuses. And now it's like, this is reality. You gotta go with what the trend is telling you and what the situation is telling you. So technology is one. So we developed the website. We're going to push for local deliveries, so empanadas in Miami, and then nationally. So we're going to be able to ship empanadas nationally. That's the second step of that. The airport strategy, which I've been working on expanding our concept in airports. We're the #1 bestseller per square foot for the entire Miami airport. I mean, that's like, we do sales
Wow.
and nobody does. Like, I
That's
do 3 times the sales that a Starbucks does in a similar sort of footprint. So that's something that's been in the works for the last 4 years. It's a process. I think we're getting there. So licensing in airports. We already have 1 license in Nashville Airport sold. We're waiting to hear from Denver Airport and so forth. So that's that. Continue to push for that. And then the last thing is the retail component, which I did not want it to do any other stores, based on what happened to us in South Beach.
Right.
But my husband has been pushing the idea for the last 3 years. It's like, look at the Ventanita, we're selling. Like, what if we were in a really good location, this and that? And so we are looking for locations now to open across Miami.
Wow, you guys, that's a lot going on. Like you said, you got to focus, but there's different types of focus. You can focus. The main thing is the main thing, right? Your business is selling empanadas, and then, branding the business, you can sell more empanadas. But a lot of business owners, they get distracted by the shiny object. So now they're trying to do a type of business that has nothing to do with their core business. And if you have the time or the business is set, well, that's one thing. But when you're in a vulnerable stage, or you're not big enough to do that, it can cause a lot of problems.
Actually, I went through that. Like, I started another business 2 years ago. I developed a new business idea, a brand, a concept. I bid it on it. I won the space for it. And when I was like, okay, do I do this or not? I had to give it a thought. And so I had to say no, and I had to put a hold on, like a pause on that project. So yeah, I think that's what you mean by focusing on the right things.
Yeah, exactly. And look, and managing growth is a whole nother thing, because a lot of people think growth, you just sell more empanadas, but that's not it, because you have different locations and different strategies. And do you have, like a kitchen or fulfillment center? And then do you ship to all your 13 locations every morning? If you expand nationally, how does that change things? Like you said, you can license, you can franchise. There's so many ways to grow a business, and each one of them bring opportunities, but they also bring challenges. And so, but that's what's fun, right? I hope you guys are still having the time of your lives with it.
Yes, we both run the company. So my husband is kind of the big picture visionary guy. I do the day-to-day. So it's a lot of going back and forth with him.
Let's end with this. 2 questions. One, what is the best piece of advice you have for entrepreneurs of any age? And then 2, what's the biggest mistake you've made in your business that you think we could all learn from?
The advice for young entrepreneurs: start, work really hard, and continue to work hard without forgetting to dream big. I always say that you have to dream big, but then the dream has to come to reality every day, working really hard. And then you said for the mistakes.
Yeah. Think of maybe a mistake that you made that we could all learn from.
One of the things that I say is, as a food entrepreneur, don't ever go into an empty shelf and open from scratch when you have so many second generation restaurants that want to get out of the leases, and pretty much the restaurant can be ready. That is, I wish I would have known that 12 years ago when we started.
That is really, really good advice, and it's tactical and it's actionable. I love that. And there's a lot of ways to do that, by the way. So Pilar, thank you so much for joining us. I had a great time. Best of luck to you guys at Half Moon. I mean, I think you're going to come through this, smelling like roses, because of the perseverance and the mental strength that you mentioned. And you just got to fight through it and attack, not challenges, but opportunities. So best of luck to you guys.
Thank you, Brett. I appreciate the time, and it was fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.